Now, as we celebrate 5 years since the United Kingdom finally took back control, we're coming to you live from the Quayside Hotel in Boston, Lincolnshire. And here is the Reform UK leader, Nigel Farage, celebrating 5 years ago as Great Britain finally got Brexit done, took back control and left the European Union. Or did we? Well, I'm delighted to say now that Nigel Farage joins me on the show. Nigel Farage joining us there from the Reform Conference in North West Essex. Of course, that's the seat of Kemi Badenoch. Before we get on to parking your tanks on Kemi's lawn, Mr Farage, let's look back on that night 5 years ago. We just showed a clip where you said, if Boris Johnson gets the job done, then great. Do you think he did? Did we actually ever get Brexit done?
Well, we did really, Martin. I mean, look, we left the European Union. Constitutionally, that was one of the biggest things that's happened in the country for hundreds of years. We're out, and we're not going to rejoin. So, yeah, the status quo was reversed at 11 p.m. on the 31st of January 2020. But what your question really hints at is, did people that voted for Brexit and then in 2019 voted for Boris Johnson, did they get what they thought they deserved? And the answer to that, sadly, in many areas, has to be no. That referendum had a turnout that stunned everybody. And one of the main reasons was to stop the open door and to reduce the sheer volume of numbers of people coming into Britain. And absolutely the opposite happened. So there's disappointment on that. Northern Ireland has literally been cut off in many ways from the rest of the United Kingdom. And right through business, from everything, from financial services right down to fisheries, the idea that life would get easier, the regulations would go, no, none of that has happened at all. So I'm delighted we did it. It was the right thing. We've left a group of countries who bicker with each other constantly, whose economies, if you can believe it, are in even worse shape than ours is. It was the right thing to do, but we haven't grabbed the opportunities that it offered, and that is very, very disappointing.
And yet, Nigel Farage, at the moment we are being governed by a Prime Minister who made no secret of the fact he wanted to cancel Brexit for 3 years as the leader of the people's vote. He says we won't go back in, but do you believe that? Or do you believe we're heading for something far worse? Death by 1,000 paper cuts, treaty by treaty, agreement by agreement, getting swept into the web again of Brussels?
Well, we never really left the web of Brussels, and that is the fault of the Conservative government. There were so many things that we stayed aligned to, including most of their rule book. Now, clearly, what Keir Starmer wants to do is, in terms of the defence and perhaps even foreign policy, tie us closer to the European Union. From the sounds of it, he wants us to start mirroring the single market rule book. I mean, none of that is good. That is effectively, in effect, Brexit in name only. But is Keir Starmer going to take us back into the European Union? No, he is not. So I just see this now as being unfinished business. You're quite right. Starmer was an uber Remainer, a rejoiner, wanted to have a second referendum. The Tories, from what I can see now, never really believed in it. So Reform are the only people who can finish the job.
Do you think, I saw an article in today's Telegraph where you wrote there's only one chance of getting Brexit done, and that is if you're the Prime Minister. Do you think that's feasible? The polling is the polling, but at the moment you have 5 MPs. Is that simply a mountain that's too great to climb?
Well, the point I'm making is the only way you get the kind of Brexit people voted for is to have a government that believes in it. And the only party that really believes in it is Reform. The Conservatives are still split down the middle on this, as they've been all the way through. If you're asking me, could we get an astonishing result at the next general election that in historical terms would be unprecedented, I really believe it's possible, yes.
Okay, Nigel Farage, you are today in North West Essex, of course, the constituency of Kemi Badenoch. You said you would take the battle to her. Today you've parked your tanks on Kemi's lawn. Are you confident that Reform UK can win the seat and unthrone Kemi Badenoch at the next general election?
Well, look, I've been called many things over the years. I don't really mind. You can say what you like about me. I'm big enough and ugly enough to take it. But don't call me dishonest. And when we put those membership figures out, we had that live ticker. We've still got the live ticker. We're about to go through 190,000 members, probably in the next hour or so. When we put that ticker up and it went through the number of ballot papers the Conservative Party had sent out for the leadership election, I mean, it was Boxing Day. We were going, whoa, we're delighted. And she put out a series of tweets at 5 o'clock that day accusing me of being dishonest. Well, I'm not dishonest. So I asked her for an apology. She didn't give one. I said I would take further action. Now, some took that to be would I sue her. But to sue, you have to prove actual harm. In fact, the publicity that she gave us probably got us another 20,000 members. So the legal route was out. So I've decided to come to this constituency to meet Reform members in northwest Essex, and there are lots of them. And yeah, we're going to make this a target seat at the Essex County Council elections if it goes ahead, and the next general election. And the moral of the story is, don't call me dishonest.
And Nigel Farage, I saw you put that projection onto the House of Parliament yesterday, and it says dictators cancel democracy, cancel elections. This, of course, is pertaining to those local elections. How big a problem do you think this is for an electorate? I mean, I've been in Boston today, Nigel Farage, and the electorate here, their confidence, their faith in the political class is absolutely on the floor. I think it's the worst I've ever seen it. Do you think cancelling elections is the way to win back that trust?
I find it extraordinary. I mean, we don't know the answer yet. We've been waiting for a couple of weeks, but it could be that up to 10 million people will be denied their vote in this year's English County Council elections. The excuse being given is local government reorganisation, but actually it's collusion between a Labour government and a Conservative opposition that don't want these elections to happen. They're so fearful of reform, so fearful of losing their seats and losing their jobs. And frankly, for this to be happening in modern Britain is astonishing. And virtually no one is talking about it. We expect to know on Monday or Tuesday whether these elections will go ahead in full or not, but we're told that many millions will be deprived of the vote. And all that can do is further damage public trust in our political system and our political class.
Nigel, could I ask you about one of your favourite politicians, Ed Miliband? I know you've got a lot of time for him. I've just spoken to the CEO of Quadrilla, Francis Egan. Astonishingly, America is going drill, baby, drill. Ed Miliband is talking about fill, baby, fill, filling the concrete, the drilling platforms.
Yeah.
Simply getting rid of them and destroying Britain's ability to be energy sovereign. How harmful do you think Ed Miliband is for Great Britain?
I think the most harmful thing for Great Britain was the legislation Theresa May put through with the net zero commitments written into law without even a vote in the House of Commons. But then, of course, the Conservatives agree, Labour agree, the Lib Dems agree. They all agree that we have to do whatever we can. We have to go for renewable energy because we, on our own, are going to change the weather and save the planet. Marvellous, isn't it? And the result of it is catastrophic. We have energy prices for our industries that are between 5 and 6 times more expensive than that in America. We're witnessing a wave of deindustrialisation, everything from chemicals to refining to steel making, you name it, it's disappearing, it's going. And the next set of household bills, after a month like this, when the wind has hardly blown, and we're relying on imported gas, those bills are going to be horrendous at just the same time, of course, as the winter fuel allowance has been removed. This net zero policy that we're following, what we're doing in the name of combating climate change is economic self-harm, and frankly what's happening with those drills, those drilling sites that Quadrilla have in the northwest of the country is little short of economic vandalism. And I think by the time the next election comes along, energy, the cost of living, what we're doing to British industry, this is going to be a huge issue in British politics. And the Conservatives, they might say we disagree with Ed Miliband, but don't forget, just a few years ago, it was Boris Johnson saying we're going to become the Saudi Arabia of wind. They are the Union Party. We're the ones offering a different approach.
Okay, and finally, Nigel Farage, The leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, she's not in her constituency today. You've turned up to make your statements. Have you got a message for Kemi Badenoch? I understand she's left the area.
Well, all I say to Kemi Badenoch is that when you say things that are completely untrue and false and are disproven, as we did by inviting leading journalists in from major publications and broadcasters to look at Nation Builder, which we use to count the membership. By the way, Kemi, your party uses Nation Builder as well. When you get things wrong in life, the best approach is to hold your hands up and say sorry. You didn't do it to me, so here I am.
Okay, Nigel Farage, thank you very, very much for joining us on Brexit Day. 5 years on. Nigel Farage there, the leader of Reform UK. Thanks for joining us on the show.